What is a trigger? Going back to our iceberg image, what happens is a behavior on the surface that's visible. That's what a trigger is. A reaction to something in the moment that has a thread back to some original concerns or fears that are unconscious. And it's like there is that thread, so that if you deal with it at the conscious level only, you're not going to really understand what the source of the trigger is. So that what's really important is to go down, to follow the thread of the trigger down to the original source. But let's first talk about what a trigger looks like. How do we recognize triggers? Now, we get triggered, other people get triggered, and there may be various degrees of how much trauma we've experienced. But when we have a more exaggerated, the more exaggerated our response, our trigger response, is significant in relationship to the more greater level of trauma. So that let's do a little scale. And the other thing I want to mention that's really important is triggered people trigger people. So one of the ways you may notice, like I can tell when I get triggered, there's certain things that will trigger me that somebody else has done or said.
I said I
Having,
was sorry.
I know. That is true. Mike and I
Right.
can definitely trigger each other. We
But it's
start
not
out.
always me.
Perfect example, though, that around control, particularly, and which is very common. It's common in all kinds of relationships, your work relationships, and also your personal couple relationships or children relationships, that we can get triggered by each other. And in RIM, the way we see that, anytime we get triggered, is an opportunity, because it means we now have a link to the source that is invisible. So if we work with it when we're triggered, to take that feeling, start with the triggered feeling, and begin following the thread all in a visceral way all the way down to the source, then it's revealed. It's kind of, I think about it as the metaphor of like water. All of a sudden, if our feelings are like water in a pitcher, our body's the pitcher and there's water in a pitcher, that whatever the sediment is at the very bottom is what a trigger is tied to. It's the sediment, that which is unavailable, you don't know it at this point in time. It can look different depending on the level of the trigger. So there'll be the time we're the most triggered, and then there's a time when we're a little triggered. So we're able to stay in control of it. But when we're out of control of it, that's when it's the most uncomfortable for you and the people around you, or the client and the people around them. And it's also the quickest route. It is the quickest route down to the source image that is stuck in the pause mode, in their gut, in their viscera.